Good afternoon and welcome to the latest PHA Roundtable. As part of our Women's Health Month, today's topic of discussion is the menopause. I am so delighted to be joined by some wonderful guests, and I would like them to introduce themselves one at a time, if that's okay. First of all, good afternoon and welcome to Elsa.
Hi, I'm Dr. Elsa Kerr. So I was an NHS GP for almost 27 years in the same practice. I retired a couple of years ago just to follow my passion for environmental and functional medicine. So I work in two places, which is a multidisciplinary functional medicine practice and also an online bioidentical hormone clinic. So I have a special interest in treating hormonal conditions. I also have a voluntary role in the community, so I'm helping to run one of the PHA hubs in Huddersfield, and as part of that, I'm a regular facilitator for a local menopause project, which is based at one of the local climbing gyms. So it's called Moving Through Menopause, and the ladies come along and they have two educational sessions from me around what the hormones are, what they do. They go away with a hormone questionnaire, which we decode at the second session, and then we talk about how to manage symptoms, how to approach your GP, knowing where your imbalances might be, what the treatment options might be that you could ask for. They also have a Pilates and breathwork session and a nutrition session, and then they learn to climb for 6 weeks. So they do both bouldering and rope climbing. So the rope wall is 21 meters high. So a lot of these women are fearful of heights. So they come and they really gain confidence. They gel together as a little community. They keep in contact through WhatsApp. It's been an amazing project. So that's me.
That sounds fantastic. And I'm sure once they've conquered that wall, they might feel they can conquer anything.
Exactly.
Thank you so much. And good afternoon to June Tremor. Good afternoon, June.
Hello. Fancy seeing you here again. Yeah, I want to ask Elsa all sorts of questions, but I'll contain myself and I'll just introduce myself, and then we'll maybe get into that discussion a little bit later. I'm not very far from you, Elsa. I'm in York, and I'm also involved in our local PHA hub. And I manage a complementary integrative healthcare clinic here as well that is separate to the hub. And I've been doing that sort of thing for since 1991, and not interested in retiring. I am of retirement age, but I feel that I need to carry on doing what I'm doing because I haven't educated enough people yet. I teach Touch for Health self-care and online and in person, and the full Touch for Health levels 1 to 4. And I'm an acupuncturist with special interest in women in fertility, labor, birth, postpartum, children, and on into later life with menopause. So yeah, women's care is central to my practice, and I'm particularly concerned about the environment, same as Elsa, the hormone disruptors that are around us that people are just not aware of. And this is what I mean when I say educating people. I think people can take steps to avoid their hormones being so massively disturbed in our modern existence, because it didn't always used to be like that. And coming from a Chinese medicine perspective, I talk about the yin and the yang and the balance of that. And that seems to help people get a perspective, because they can balance things with food as much as medication or supplements or whatever. Yeah.
Thank you, June, and you continue to educate everybody with Wellbeing Wednesday as well. So thank you for that. And good afternoon and welcome to Claire, who has also previously presented a presentation for PHA.
Yes, and just on cue, my cat comes in when I'm just about to come on the camera. She's like, I want to be here, so I'll need to take her up just to say hello. So this is Lola.
Oh.
I'm Claire. My name's Dr. Claire Willocks, and I've got a little bit of a hybrid role here. And so when I spoke with PHA, it was about bridging the healthcare gap, and that's really what I've been doing for quite some time. I worked in the NHS for 30 years, and I eventually left my full-time practice last year in July, having been there, being a consultant obstetrician and gynecologist for 20 years. I've come back and I do 2 clinics once a fortnight. So I do 1 day a fortnight, and that's an NHS menopause clinic and a postmenopausal bleeding clinic. But my journey was very much that I was always interested in seeing the whole woman. And when I look back at my training, I'd always been interested in physiology. I did a degree in sports science and physiology. I did research and I was always about normality, exercise and pregnancy. And I thought, actually, I'm probably more interested in, doctors are there to treat disease, but I realized I was more interested in how could we keep well. I probably should have done medicine in China. But so I trained initially in homeopathy, and for about 13 years, I really kind of delved quite deeply into homeopathy. And then it just became not accepted by the NHS at all. And I was really, really wanting, I could see this huge, big disparity between often what the doctor says and what the doctor does, but also what we could offer for me, it was women, or, people with a womb, women. And that I found that homeopathy is amazing, but even that, as a doctor prescribing homeopathy, it was still transactional. So I then moved into energy medicine, and I now teach and practice in 2 forms of energy medicine, one the Donna Eden method, and also something called the Tara approach. So that's very much alongside what June's saying, is honouring the. So I have a business called Nurture Your Energies, and that's how to empower and facilitate women to reclaim their wellness and vitality through energy medicine, lifestyle practices, and honouring the cycles of nature and honouring the rhythms of nature. And that's where I think that's what's happened within mainstream medicine and with our culture just now. We've become disconnected from the rhythms of nature, disconnected from our cycles, disconnected from our menstrual cycles. And it's, people say, well, how can I have a cycle in menopause? It's just that we can follow the cycles of nature. We can follow our come into our natural power. So anyway, this was just an introduction. So, I work in the NHS, but that's now I see that now as my charitable work. I would love to be involved. I'm still a nominal member of our local PHA hub, but I really didn't have the capacity to get actively involved. And I hope I will be in the future. So.
Thank you so much. And the thing is, you wonderful ladies are so passionate about what you do. So I totally understand that you can't put everything into a quick introduction. But yes, good. Can't wait to come back to you all. And finally, but not least, Jo. Good afternoon, Jo, and welcome.
Hello, hi. Thank you. I'm really glad to be here, and especially with these wonderful professionals in these different fields. And I'm a holistic health coach, and I trained at the College of Naturopathic Medicine just a few years ago. So this is actually my second career in my 50s, which is kind of falls in line with what's been said by Claire, etc., and Elsa and June about, empowering women to, in this later stage of life, I decided to switch gears and do something that I love and that I've always followed as in my lifestyle and how I've lived and brought up my children. And I felt that I wanted to, it was really important, I think, in order to empower people to take back and regain their health and realize that they have so much that they can do to be proactive in how they live and their longevity and their vitality and their wellness. So I'm a holistic health coach, and my particular interests are healthy aging and also what I term as clean living, which really relates to what Elsa was talking about toxins and toxicity in terms of what we put on our skin, what we put in our bodies, our environment, everything. They're particular passions of mine. And more recently, I've just started to give a series of menopause talks with women locally. I'm based down in Dorset, in the southwest of the country. So I'm part of the Bridport, which is a Dorset PHA, and I'll be giving some talks in May as well, and as part of the PHA in Bridport, again on menopause. And really, I'm in my mid-50s, and I've really tried to, I suppose for me, I went through my own menopause journey, and I think that was also why I've decided that that was something that I wanted to talk about. And I thought that it was important to to try to address to women who were perhaps even at an earlier stage and not really thinking in their 40s, early 40s, not really thinking it's coming up to them yet or affecting them. So because I do think that there are so many of these other whether it's endocrine disruptors or lifestyle factors or our diet, things that we can do that actually will help to make the menopause journey transition. For some women, there can be problems, obviously very troublesome, bothersome symptoms, and it's really to try and make it easier. But more so than that, as I said, this is my second career, and I really feel like I'm an art historian by training and a university lecturer. And I worked with non-Western art and cultures and religious practices and philosophies. So as part of that, and I lived in Asia for a long time as well. I've lived in the US, I've lived in Asia for 10 years. And so as part of that, I had many treatments, and I'm very used to Asian food, culture, ideas, medicinal practices, and that was also very much part of my own journey. But the way that specifically in Asian cultures and in many African and sub-Saharan cultures, the way that this transition menopause is dealt with is very different. And I think it's really important that we do start to address, and of course there are many things we can do, as we've been talking about, to help women transition through with many symptoms, but to look at the bigger picture. And it's really a rite of passage, and it should be celebrated. And we're about to go into a new phase of our life, a new phase that has all kinds of benefits, and there's so much that we can still offer. And so hopefully, yes, there's a reevaluation and reframing that I hope to be part of that discussion.
Thank you, Jo. I can see it's going to be a fascinating discussion. I wonder, before we get into sort of the well-being and the physicalities and symptoms and everything, whether to go back to Elsa and talk about the mental health side, because that hasn't been spoken about during the introductions. I wonder if that's the right time.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think my focus is often around the mental health aspects of menopause. We always survey our ladies before they start the Moving Through Menopause program, and one of the biggest things that they talk about is how different their mood is, how different they feel. They lose their confidence, they just don't feel themselves, their moods are unpredictable. I think one lady said her son had said, you know, I never know where I am with you, Mum. You're like a bag of revels. You never know which one you're going to pick. So I think it's important that these women don't feel that they are going mad, that they understand what the imbalance is and how we can help to rebalance it. And for me, it's not just about the hormones. A functional medicine approach is always to think about the balance of all the hormones. So thinking about oxytocin, thinking about the adrenal hormones, thinking about blood sugar balance, thinking about the thyroid, and also considering the modifiable lifestyle factors which build the strong foundations for your health. So we talk about all that during the program. Yeah, but what I don't want is women to be going to their GP and just to be given antidepressants, because it's not what they need.
Exactly that, and that's why you're here to help and to educate and give other options. Would anyone else like to go next? June?
Well, I'd like to ask Elsa, who devised this program, because it sounds marvelous. It's fantastic. Did you devise that all-encompassing, the climbing and the reporting back on hormone health and that?
It's based at a charity at the climbing gym local to me. So their charity is called the ROCT Foundation, ROKT, and they do a lot of work with different groups. And I think because menopause was so hot on the press, really, they felt that they wanted to do some sort of project around the menopause. So it was their director, Katie, really, that worked up the programme, and it was through a local contact that they got in contact with me, and we built the programme together, really.
That's fantastic. So did they have funding for that? Because I'd like to maybe think about that as an exemplar kind of, it's a really great, I don't like the word template because that means that doesn't really give people room to devise their own particular things, but I think it could serve as a blueprint in a way for
absolutely.
people.
So the first 12 months, so yes, last year was the first year, we had funding from Sport England, and we've got funding for the next 2 years from the National Lottery and a smaller fund as well. So we've got funding for the next 2 years. So that's 6 cohorts of women. So we get between around 18 women per group. So we had almost 100 women last year.
That's
and
incredible.
The feedback was amazing. And these women, they leave and they've got this big toolbox of things that they can call on when they need it. We talk a lot about stress management because in my hormone work, one of the biggest things I see are these high achieving women, and they are, to use an analogy, they're driving down the fast lane, foot flat to the floor, and they're never stopping. And they're surprised when their body no longer does what they want it to do, because they're never pulling into the service station, they're never refueling, topping up the oil, pumping up the tires.
Do you think that that is across the board, that or does it make any difference to the lifestyle? I'm talking general terms. If you are that fast living woman, as opposed to somebody that maybe leads a quieter life, are the symptoms different, do you find?
I'll speak about it, if that's all right. Yeah, my hand up. I definitely think it's partly our personality, what drives us, and how type A we are, or in Ayurveda, Pitta, in the 5 element, how much wood and how much fire have we got, and whatever is our often ends up being our constitution, being our strengths is also our challenges. And I read an amazing book by I don't know if you've heard of Claudia Welsh. It was years ago, but Balance Your Hormones, Balance Your Life. And it's about a macrobiotic. She's Ayurvedic trained, but she talked. Ailsa will be very, very well versed with this, but she talked in very basic terms about our sex steroids, our metabolism. We were taught this in medical school, like in our second year in biochemistry, and we thought, who on earth needs to know this? But you learn very, very basically that, all of our sex hormones come from cholesterol. And then there's this thing called this pregnenolone shift. So there's either a choice. Either do we need safety, or are we safe to, do we need safety, or are we in that level that we can reproduce and we can have sex and we can just let all our juices flow? And it's almost like there's a choice. And if our system needs to have that safety, and we've used up we've been in that fast lane, keep going, again and again and again, and we use up all our adrenaline, we need cortisol. So the precursor, progesterone, then goes to cortisol, and we have a huge, big imbalance. So it's just that we can't have, in normal circumstances, we can't have sex and stress at the same time. And I feel that that's the biggest issue. What Ailsa touched on about, it's that we've done very well with women's rights. We've got equal rights. We know now we can retire after men if we want. It's like we can keep going. We can keep going until we're 67, but at what cost is that? And like, I'm sure Joe would say, like, in the past, women would have retired early, they would have, their children would have grown up, and there wouldn't have been such a long time in their menopausal years before they died. And I think now the panic is that we are working and working and working, and we're kind of working against the machine. And then we are wanting this 30, 40 years, of like 60 is a new 40. And it's just, I think, how can we get that balance? How can we look at the stress? And Joe mentioned about, pre-menopause. Actually, how can we become aware of our cycles? How can we actually note where we are, like, after our bleed, and what our moods are like, and what is it that the time before we bleed? It's not that we've gone crazy, but these are things that we maybe just don't bring up, or we don't address, and they're constantly kind of put down in a patriarchal world, because we feel that the only way to succeed is to be in that mold. And that's certainly how I see so many of the women that come to the NHS clinic is like, my boyfriend's 20 years younger than me. I've got no sex drive. I need to fix it. I need fixed. I need this. And it's like, actually, what is it what are we becoming into? What is it that can we see the amazing freedom that there is of the menopause? But for that, and it's something I'm learning, is that we need to say no to what doesn't serve us. And if we keep on saying yes to folding the socks and doing the ironing and taking the kids out and carrying on at work, and we just will become a mess. But at the very beginning, people's personality types, or their, if you look at through TCM, their rhythm types, I think they do tend to have, if they've got a strength in that area, there often can be an imbalance. And that's where so many holistic therapies can help, because they can help see the whole person. They can help see the root cause, why that person's pushing, well, what's driving them? What's that underlying belief to make us push? And actually, can we look at that and take a breath and say, okay, I'm okay. I'm not broken. So I probably put a lot in there, and nothing about HRT, but my disclaimer is that, it's, it may be very good for the hot flushes and sweats. I daren't even think about what it's doing to our water supply, the amount of gel that we just put on, and we just add on a bit more and a bit more and a bit more. It takes them away great, because it puts it in them, takes them away fantastically. But I think the expectations that are out there is that it's going to help with the mental health, it's going to help with the brain fog, it's going to help with the stress, it's going to help with that, and it doesn't. And it is getting to a stage that I think the message out there is a little bit dangerous, that we can tweak and change it the way that we want to, and that's not going to have any repercussions. I think it just takes us further away from who we really are at our core.
Yes.
So I feel like Joe is
yes, I thought so many amazing things there. I completely agree with you. And just to go back to when you were talking about maybe part of this conversation also aimed at thinking about knowing more about our cycles and actually respecting that, is the fact of, yes, all those many different hormones that in the course of a woman's life, and that's the cycle, the different switches between hormones switching in between this stage and that stage. And for myself, I found during my menopause journey and in life in general, the notion of fasting can be an amazing tool. But one of the things that I've really discovered is that obviously it really depends on where you're at. And there are times in your cycle when you should be hormone feasting on certain foods because your body really needs that. And other times in your cycle when it's actually a really good idea to fast a little, etc., and those kind of things. And I feel like if women, by perhaps go and trying to do so much and overdoing it, maybe sometimes with certain types of exercise at certain times of the month or their cycle and different ages, as our hormones change, more understanding of the complexity of the female form, you know, with and this is not meant to be derogatory towards men in any sense, but our hormones are, it's such a roller coaster, and there are so many different things going on that maybe more understanding and respect for that would serve us better, because you can't have it all and you can't do everything, and sometimes by trying to do that, it's detrimental to you, whether it's with the mood or hormone imbalance or ill health or something else.
I think, isn't that exactly what Clara said as well, that we do have it all, so we think we do have to do it all. And I think that is the problem with a lot of us, maybe. June, you've helped us immensely during Wellbeing Wednesday, lots of tips and ideas, and you've helped me personally, so please come in.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think there are so many angles to this, and it's just such a huge subject. I think we need to probably have a few more sessions to really explore all these different avenues. There's no socket in this room, and my battery's about to die. So I'm probably going to disappear. Plus, we've got a drop-in at our clinic, and I think more people are going to start arriving. But I just wanted to say that I think the stages of life, I did talk about this in a recent Wellbeing Wednesday, about the stages of life not being really fully recognized and honored in our culture. And Joe will know this, in other cultures, they do acknowledge puberty as a rite of passage. And they acknowledge, well, they used to do, menopause as another rite of passage, and to the elders in the community being more respected and valued for their experience. I think what's happened in our culture is that we become incredibly isolated. So many women think that they're the only one suffering like this, and they think everybody else is normal. I just want to feel normal. But normal for me is not the same as what's normal for you. And all of the different hormones are interplaying with each other. I mean, that's not my prime training, but over the years, I have learned quite a lot about the different hormones. And it feels to me like it started back about 30 years ago with thyroxine. So many women coming to see me were on thyroxine. And I'm thinking, why is this? What is disrupting their thyroid glands? And I think we all probably agree now that there are chemicals in our environment that have caused that. But then they've got these, now they've got, you know, the hormone replacement thing happened soon after that. And then they started with the testosterone recently. They're adding in testosterone. And my favorite thing to say to people now is like, well, are you going to get all your hormones replaced by chemicals eventually? You know, you don't trust your body to balance things out. We've got to balance them so they work together. The progesterone and the estrogen have to come down, and they get out of harmony with each other. And it's very much a yin and a yang thing to me. But you know, that's where you get the overheating, because the yin isn't nurturing the yang. And that's because we've been encouraged. Some of us, like myself, are a bit more yang in nature anyway, but we need to make sure that the yin is nurtured. And you know, I think you all know about TCM, so I'm not, but the people who are listening may not, and I would urge you to go and have a look at different foods. There are books available that will help you find the foods that will help nurture your yin and also balance out your blood, because there's the excessive blood flow is a sign of either not enough blood in the system or too much. And it's the body's expelling, you know, you get the flooding. That is something that, you know, a lot of women think it is only them that happens to. And I know people that it's shocking how much they're losing blood. And then of course they're feeling exhausted because of that. And the brain doesn't have enough blood. And so therefore you get all the concomitant kind of confusion, and people do feel old all of a sudden, but not valued, because the society is not valuing the older woman. So I've been talking a lot lately about Colette Brown, who talks about the spiritual menopause, and I think that is something that's really fascinating. And we do have a link to her YouTube. She's taking a break now. She's written a lot of books. She's a very interesting lady. she's an ex-pharmacist who became a clairvoyant. She's very, very wise and interesting. She talks about crystals and her own rituals for passing over into being a grandmother phase. Even if you haven't got children or grandchildren, you can still be a grandmother to the community.
And you know about Kristen Hawk's work. She's an anthropologist who worked with the Hadza people in Tanzania in East Africa, and she came up with the grandmother hypothesis, which links into...
Carry on, say more.
So the grandmother hypothesis goes back to this notion about the importance of being postmenopausal women. And what has been found is that the role in Hadza communities, for example, with the grandmothers, by taking over and helping with the childcare for their daughters and their sons, their families, their extended families within their communities, and taking on those roles when so enabling the daughter, and also to carry on, they would go out and they would continue foraging some of the time, but helping with the childcare, enabled their children to produce more children, and also it enabled the community to have more of a food supply, which meant the children were more healthy because they would also be foraging, which meant that their genes, because they had more children, effectively their genes, there were more children to carry their genes. So this notion developed, which is called the grandmother hypothesis, which is about the importance of their role. And you know, that saying about it takes a village to raise a child. You know, there's actually there's real truth in that, in terms of the strength of what a grandmother or a grandparent can bring to the table. And yes, so her work's very interesting, and I've narrowed it, I've said it in a very short way. It doesn't do justice, but that's the general gist.
Hopefully you can share a link to her work in the chat or something, or give it to Kerry. So
yes.
Yeah,
that would be great.
Happy to share that. And that's something that's mentioned quite a lot in Wellbeing Wednesday, is it takes a village to raise a child, and also the other end of life as well. Elsa, back to you. I was just wondering on the exercise front, which was touched on by all the ladies, and how you found the climbing with regards to the exercise. Obviously, there's a sense of empowerment for being able to achieve the climb, but did it have a direct impact on the symptoms of the menopause for the ladies that took part?
I think they certainly felt stronger, because they're using muscles that they didn't know they had. And obviously, because it's strength training, it's great for bone density, because you're moving your body against gravity. I think it's good for connecting the two sides of your brain, because it's a cross body activity, so you're usually moving, alternating arms and legs. But I think the growth in confidence, to hear them when they get the top of the wall, and everybody's been cheering them on, and it's all the high fives, and yeah. And the other thing they have to do is trust somebody that they don't know very well, because they're dependent on the person who's holding the other end of the rope, the belayer.
Wow.
Hold them if they fall off the wall, or to hold them as they abseil back down.
Thank you, June. Thank you for joining us, and hopefully we'll do another menopause roundtable very soon. Sorry, Elsa. Yeah, I was just wondering, because we're talking about the different symptoms, and we've spoken about eating, and I just wondered if there was a marker from before and after with their the direct impact, but you've just said their bone density increases, etc., and they're stronger. So that's great.
I don't think we've actually measured that, but
right, okay.
Research shows that the strength training, and I think the Pilates element as well, that helps them with a little bit of flexibility, and it's something that maybe they can take some of those exercises, the breath work and so on, helps them with the stress management. It's another tool for that.
It's an expensive test, but I mean, Ailsa, I'm sure might use it, but simple things like using like salivary cortisol and looking at, because actually seeing the levels of stress come down and coincides with the improved endurance and feeling better about themselves. But it's not readily available.
But I think one of the big forms of medicine is these women coming together. At the first session, we do a little going round, people introduce themselves, say why they're here, and in almost every instance there's such a need for people to share and be heard. There are tears shed and there are hugs, and there is such a need.
Do you think that's also part of it? I think part of the issue and the stigma around notions of menopause is this feeling of women becoming invisible or past their, after menopause, or what's my role? What do I do now? That there's a sense of, yes, this invisibility in society. I'm past my reproductive years, or perhaps, I'm ending towards the end of my career, or my children are grown up, that sort of thing. This invisibility, and that's something that really is to do with self-esteem, but to find something new, to find that confidence and realize that you're actually just starting a new phase.
Yeah. And also they're being told that they need special dispensations at work because they're menopausal.
Yes.
So that just reinforces the fact that they're broken. But actually what I tell them is your energetic center moves from your sacral chakra to your throat, and actually you will speak your mind. they need to be careful.
I was going to add on to what Jo had said earlier on with her quote, and I realised I was muted, so that's why my mouth was moving. There's another quote that you'll have heard of by Margaret Mead, that never doubt that a small group of committed people would change the world, and Jean Houston added in, and that group will be menopausal women. And, the Dalai Lama's probably said about 20, 30 years ago, and that women are we're the ones that are changing. And it's not, men, please come with us, but all of us are born of women, that so far that we are the ones that are birthing all the humans on this planet. And it's actually it's realizing that we've got a really, really strong reason for being here at this time, that we've had this huge big journey from conception into birth, and loads and loads of ways that we could have not survived, not made it. And we had that little blip, and in 2020 still continuing. But so there's been loads of ways, and actually we all have a real purpose in this world. And menopausal women, as you described so nicely, Jo, in Tanzania, I think that actually the way the world is just now, the stresses that young kids are under, huge disruptions, and the number of neurodiverse kids that are coming in, and that's, I'm sure, lifestyle, genetics, lots of things, very complex. But they need that person that's a strong rock, that's grounding. They need that grandmother energy. Yes. And I think if we are caught up being in the, I must keep on doing things as I always did before, we're missing a trick.
Yes. And
it is very much about this stepping into, initiation. We don't get medicated for going through puberty. I mean, unfortunately, some young girls get put on the pill earlier on if they've got what June was explaining about the really heavy periods or quite severe symptoms. But it's just that we don't. I think in an ideal world, it's about seeing, yes, that there always will be those that need the medical model and the approach, but actually the vast majority of us can see it as a kind of natural rite of passage and stepping in. And I think what you're doing, Ailsa, sounds amazing. I mean, in Scotland, I'm sure also in England as well, there's that big craze for cold water swimming. But I think it's been so empowering. I mean, I went in on the 1st of January and in the north of Scotland, and honestly, it was just like, it was in the North Sea, off that beach, off Aberdeen, and it was like, oh my goodness, if I could do that, I could do anything. And that's when I did my first 3-day fast. I'm actually on a 3rd day of a fast again just now, but it's really it's really important to get guidance to do something like a fast, to get guidance to do something like cold water swimming, and to have a program set up that's actually, that's actually funded is amazing.
Yes.
So
I think what the common denominator is about the education but empowering women, and the menopause is not something to be scared of. It's something to share and to be guided through. But I just wondered if you spoke about it earlier, Jo, not even the first symptoms, but pre-menopause. When would you suggest, apart from always, when would be the time that you would suggest people, ladies, start looking at what they're doing, the way they're living their life, looking at their cycles? Just when is the right time to start?
I suppose, I mean, I would imagine probably, as you say, I mean, I think if you're a mother, it's probably great if you can talk to your daughters about it, even before puberty or once they reach that stage, about this is an important, these things are going on, about those other stages. But I think definitely by your mid-30s, coming towards your 40s, because for many women, I mean, obviously there's a huge difference about when perimenopausal symptoms start and that menopause transition will begin. But for many women, it will be in their mid-40s, perhaps a little earlier. So maybe if you start to think about things a few years before that, you can start to put in place. Maybe, I mean, I think when we go into the supermarket, we should straight away now have choices to buy things that don't have SLSs and parabens and phthalates and things, and that's just not possible. Even for maybe for washing powders and things, but I feel like, or for makeup and things, I think for mothers with daughters, as soon as your daughters start wanting to put makeup on their face, you should try to introduce them to non-toxic ones, and say with sun creams and all of those things. So I think it can happen throughout your life, but certainly in terms of thinking about your exercise or diet and what you do, how you live, in terms of how you put on your body and what you put in your body, I would say late 30s, early 40s is a good time, because then also it's probably coming up much more closely, and maybe you have more emphasis to do something, because obviously we're all busy. So perhaps otherwise there are other demands, especially with very young children, of course. But can I just say one thing, just to go back to, it was wonderful what you were just saying about empowering women into their menopause. And I love this, I think it was Jen Gunter, who maybe you all know about. She's an OBGYN. I think she's Canadian. She's written the Vagina Bibles and the Menopause Manifesto, and she's really trying to empower women and claim back, this space. And she comments that actually human beings, as women, we are an evolutionary wonder, because we are the only species, aside from toothed whales, that survive past menopause. Other creatures actually don't really last long. And so there are really good reasons that we've evolved to exist past menopause, and it is because of our power and our intuition and wisdom and what we can bring to society, I believe.
Definitely, thank you. Claire, I think you were going to comment as well, were you? On the age that you think we should really focus.
I absolutely agree with Jo, because I think I work with people who work with it. Well, I work with energy, but I work with people who can see energy. And one of my teachers and mentors can see very, very clearly from about kind of our mid 30s that our energy changes, and that the menopause is nearing, basically, when we're like carrying on, as Ailsa says, in that fast lane. And I certainly wasn't. I thought, well, as many doctors do, I'm afraid to say, I thought I was invincible and rules didn't really apply to me. So I kept on going. And I often say it's like, what have you got in your bank account? How did you look after yourself, in the pre-menopause years? And because it's just suddenly the things that there used to be like a natural buffer that you can go out and drink as much as you want, or smoke, or all these things. It didn't seem to have the effect that it does have once you pass over that. You don't have the buffering of the hormones. So the alcohol is, you're talking about having beautiful products on your skin, and it would be just amazing if we brought up our children to actually see their bodies like that. I'm seeing people in their mid late 50s who've got very low self-esteem, who maybe smoke, who maybe drink, who are on, June mentioned about thyroxine, but a huge amount, there's so much polypharmacy that's there, and it's like, oh, suddenly it's the menopause, but sometimes it's all the other things that they're taking and all the stress in their system, that either they're taking as a habit that they've not had support with, or that they've been prescribed. And it's all over, but probably about 20% of the referrals, they're kind of coming down a bit, but there's been that immediate effect. But about 20% of the referrals were for testosterone, for low libido. And you see, like, so many people are actually on things, prescribed medications that are actually going to lower it more. And it's just looking at us. I would say, a whole life course approach, but definitely waking up. And we come into our kind of spiritual phase we've got a physical phase of life when we, get our everything into order. We learn to, toilet ourselves, or we're taught how to go to school. We can get some kind of job or something. And then beyond that, and once our children are growing up, beyond that, we have got that luxury of moving into kind of more spiritual expansion. And I don't know where I was saying with that, but
no, it all made total sense. And it was almost rhetorical question, because I know from experience as well that we need to look after ourselves from day one, but it's not always possible. So I just wonder if there's a time that we can pinpoint. And I wonder if, Elsa, you feel the same, that it's the mid-30s.
I'm itching to say quite a few things. So firstly, around the age, I think certainly from mid-30s onwards is, we can't really say where that point in time of the perimenopause starts, but it is a gradual process, and they do say sort of from the mid-30s onwards. I think my own experience was maybe things were changing. Definitely I noticed changes in around the age of 40. But I think it's important to educate our young women, particularly around the estrogen mimicking chemicals in the environment that do affect overall hormone balance. And certainly in my hormone work, I'm seeing an increasing number of women with PMS, PMDD, so premenopausal mood disorder, PCOS, endometriosis. And maybe if we were teaching them at an early age to avoid contact with some of these estrogen mimicking chemicals. So I've come across recently, there's a phone app that is called Yuka, Y-U-K-A, and you can get your kids going around the supermarket or scanning things in the house, and it will give you a score out of 100, a traffic light system. And certainly I think I scanned my husband's Brill cream, and it was like 0 out of 100 red. And it tells you what the toxins are in there, what the toxic ingredients are, and what the potential toxic effects of those chemicals are. So I think that's a great learning tool for kids, because they quite like scanning things in the supermarket. What was the next thing? The next thing was around testosterone. Obviously on the NHS, testosterone only has a license for treatment in women for low libido. But for me, there are so many other causes of low libido. And one of them being that women are living life in the fast lane, and their body is saying it's not safe to be having sex. So there's no, you leave yourself vulnerable having intercourse. And if your body doesn't feel it's safe, then you will have low libido.
That's amazing. That was somebody who else said that earlier? Was it you, Elsa, that said that, the safe and the stress, or was it you? It was you can't have sex while you're stressed, which you've just
exactly. Which is where the love hormone comes in, oxytocin. top trumps cortisol. So more human connection. It doesn't necessarily need to be romantic love. It can be, you know, love for humanity. It can be love for other people in the community. It could be love for your cat or dog. You know, it can be random acts of human kindness. All of those things help to suppress your cortisol. I wanted to make a book recommendation as well, which is a book called Second Spring by a lady called Kate Codrington. And I found that really, really empowering. And it very much changed the way that I talk to the ladies on, well, in the clinic and also on the Menopause Project. Because I think that does help you to tune in and recognize your own needs. You know, she talks about you retreat into this chrysalis and turn into mush, and then when you come out the other side, you know, you've released all the things that were holding you back, and you've decided who you want to be going forward, and you're a butterfly.
In certain cultures, in certain parts of Asia, menopause years are referred to as a woman's second spring.
Exactly, and I think that was the reason for the title. The title in the book.
It's nice, isn't it? Nice way to think about
it.
Yeah,
to put that positive spin on it.
It is, and I think that's maybe the way we go forward with educating people, as you know, things are going to get better. It's not the end.
Yeah, you're not on the scrap heap.
You know,
It's a shiatsu therapist and did a lot of work with Red School, Alexandra Pope, and Sharni, I can't remember Sharni's surname, but they've been running this for the past 20 plus years, and it's very much about menstrual cycle awareness and about the products that we put, you know, that we use, and just what we can do for, you know, they have a book called Wild Power, which is about being in awareness for your menstruating years. And then there's a menopause book that's just come out called Wise Power, and that is very much about, they're seeing that, you know, they see it as 5 different phases of the menopause, and it starts, I think, with a quickening, and that, you know, that we're not necessarily aware of it, but, you know, our periods may be slightly changing, and then, you know, we come to the mood changes, so I think there's so much good information out there, and it's just that we're also overwhelmed with a lot of bad information,
and a lot of what's passed on maybe be the correct information.
Yeah. And what Ailsa was saying about the oxytocin, I mean, her climbing walls will be, you know, good for oxytocin. It's like women want to tend and befriend, and we can get them in groups and doing things and supporting each other. That's
and the climbing community are a really nice community. They're always very empowering and supportive.
I'm just changing from my one-to-one menopause. It'll be an interesting trial for me, but I'm changing from one-to-one secondary care menopause consultations to doing group consultations in for hospital, because there's so much. Well, half of my consults or more than that is about lifestyle advice, and it's like, actually we just need to get women together doing this. And
maybe you need a coach
to be coached.
No, you need a coach, because I think in some of the functional medicine clinics they have a group consultation, and the coach leads the session, and then the doctor will have a 10-minute breakout with each of the people in the group.
So probably a similar structure. So I have a facilitator, and I'm only there for half of the time, because I think the real stuff comes out when the doctor's not there.
Yeah, that sounds right. Ladies, this has been fantastic, and I've really enjoyed listening to you all, and I personally think we can do more if you are happy to give your time in the future, because I think we've only just brushed on it, and I'm sure anybody that is watching wants more and definitely wants to hear more from you. But I'd just like to say thank you, and yes, hopefully see you again soon.
Thank you for hosting.
Thank you for organizing.
Thank you. Good afternoon and goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.